as we move forward to produce moving ministry that impacts lives and community. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. It's good to be with you all again for this fourth and final installment. It's come to an end, but hopefully we can do this again. This has been a blast. I've thoroughly enjoyed sharing with you all for the past 4 months. And again, Pastor Edie, in your absence, thank you, sir, for giving me this chance, this opportunity to share the little insight and knowledge that I have to continue to impact kingdom and to grow what you're doing here and working with here at the People's Church of the Harvest. We've got our handout today. And as we close out today in this series of teachings that we've done to empower and enhance the work of this church, we're going to be focused in on necessary endings. Necessary endings. I believe that this content will apply to our work here in this ministry and to our personal lives, because there's some stuff in the church and in our homes and in our lives that we need to kill. We need to end it. We need to get rid of it. We need to hit the reset button, the restart button, do it all over again. And so hopefully these principles and points that I'll share today will help you again, both personally and corporately. And so as we consider this space and place of creating these necessary endings, we recognize that necessary endings are real and relevant. They're real and relevant. And when implemented, can bring about incredible results. Necessary endings are, number one, real and relevant. Number two, when implemented, they can bring about incredible results. The most important thing endings provide is hope. It's hope. Because when we end something, that creates the space for something new to begin, something new to grow. It gives us the opportunity to envision, to imagine, to dream, to hope about things possibly being better, more productive, more fruitful as one thing ends and another begins. So again, necessary endings are real and relevant, and when implemented, can bring about incredible results. We've heard that definition given, that if you do the same thing, expecting the same results, you get the same results, but you expect something different. That's really insanity. And I want us in the church space to really move from this insane mindset that we have, where we want to still do church like it's 1974 in 2023, thinking that we're going to get some different results. It's not going to happen. Some stuff has to end for the new to begin and for us to receive some incredible results of what we're seeking in the space of work that we're doing in ministry. Now, for us to ever get to a new level, a new tomorrow, or next step, again, something has to end. For us to get to a new level, a new tomorrow, or next step, something has to end. Without the ability to end things, this is what happens. People and organizations stay stuck. They never become what they were created to be, never become what they were intended to be, never reach their full potential and possibility. They don't accomplish all that their talents and gifts and skills and abilities afford them to. And so we have to level up. We have to look for tomorrow. We have to proceed to our next. And for that to happen, something has to end. Imagine if you never graduated from kindergarten. You just stood there and stayed there as a 35, 50, 60, 70-year-old. Arrested development is what we would call it. You had to end something to get to something else, to get to the next level of your educational matriculation and maturity in life. Some stuff has to end. You remember the dumb stuff you did in your 20s. Now you're in your 50s and 60s and you can declare it's stupid. I trust that you're still not doing the same stupid stuff 30, 40, 50 years later that you were doing back then. Why? Because some stuff had to end. It had its day, it had its time, it had its season, but you needed to transition into another stage and station in life. And so for that to happen, some stuff had to end. There's a relationship that should end. There's some practices that should end. There's some phases that must be relinquished and life stages that must come to an end to open up space for the next one. Again, there are relationships that should end, practices and phases that must be relinquished, and life stages that must come to an end to open up space for the next one. Some things die, and I want us to pay attention to this. Some things die, but there are some things that must be killed. When we talk about necessary endings, we think, oh, I can just let it fade off into the sunset. If I just take my hands off of it and don't touch it, it'll go away and something new will come. It don't always work like that. Yes, some stuff will die. And there's some stuff that just needs to die. Over time, we let it kind of phase out. We don't rush it. it's going to raise too much havoc and hell in the church if we get rid of this. So we're just going to phase it out. Some of the things that I'm doing at New Covenant, people, oh, you're just going to come and change. Nope. Some stuff going to die because there's some fights that I'm not going to fight. And I've got more years on me than some of the people that would try to fight. So what my mentor said was, Steve, just get you some black suits. Get you some funeral suits. And once you put them in the ground, then you can make the shift without there being as much drama. And so we take that approach and we take that perspective with some things. But then there are other things that we got to kill. We got to come in the door swinging our machete. We getting rid of this. We canceling this. We getting this out of here right now. And here's why we have to kill it, just in case somebody's saying, well, Stephen, that's harsh. That's hard. We shouldn't be like that in the church. Listen, some stuff, if you don't kill it, it's going to kill you. It will kill your church. And so you've got to eliminate it quickly. You don't kick a snake around and push around. You cut its head off. It ain't going to reattach. You cut the tail, it may grow something. They'll be able to live without it. You cut the head off. And there's some things that are holding back our churches and our ministries that we literally need to come in and kill for us to be able to move forward to the next level and stage of ministry that's going to be effective for the times in which we live. Here's the reality. Good cannot begin until bad ends. Good cannot begin until bad ends. Until you reconcile some stuff, deal with some stuff, have some conversations in your relationships. You're not going to get to a safe space, a healthy space, get back to loving each other and being all booed up until you end the bad. Well, what is it that's here that's causing tension and strife and conflict? Kill it. Address it. Get rid of it so that we can move on to our next and we won't be stuck at this stumbling block and pulled over to the side of the road because we keep hitting this pothole and it keeps blowing our tire. Some stuff has to die. Some stuff has to be killed because good cannot begin until bad ends. We will sometimes have to kill off things that we were once invested in. This is where the killing part gets difficult for people. Nostalgia kicks in. We start remembering all the sacrifices we made, the blood, sweat, and tears that we put in the stuff. But sometimes we have to kill off things that we were once invested in, uproot what we previously nurtured, and tear down what we built for an earlier time. We'll have to kill off things that we once invested in, uproot what we previously nurtured. We cared for it. We loved it. It was our baby. We developed that ministry. We wrote all the curriculum. We went through all of the issues and getting it established and started. But you got two people left in the ministry. You might need to kill it. Maybe it's season, it's over. Maybe its day has come for you to move on and to do something different. It worked for an earlier time, but it doesn't work now. Listen, everything has an expiration date. And what's on and popping today ain't going to be on and popping 5 years from now. What you were wearing 3 years ago ain't in fashion right now. You're going to look like a clown. You walk up in here with that. Stuff shifts and stuff changes. And what was built for an early time isn't necessarily built for now. I dealt with this in one of our previous sessions as it relates to church and Black people and their engagement and how in many families we're 3 to 4 generations removed from church. Crack cocaine did that to our families. And when Crack Baby went to church with Grandmama and got old enough to stop going to Grandmama's church because it was boring and dull, they stepped out of church. And they ain't been back in church. And Crack Baby is now in their 40s or early 50s. And they grandmamas and granddaddies at this point. And they ain't been in church. Their kids ain't been in church. The grandkids ain't been in church. And for some, their great-grandkids ain't been in church. And so you think that us doing church the way grandmama had it is going to work for people who ain't been in church for 4 generations? Some stuff has to die. Other stuff has to be killed. Without the ability to end things well, this is what will happen. We'll flounder, stay stuck, and fail to reach our goals and our dreams. If we fail to create endings, if we fail to end things well, we'll stay in this stuck place. We'll flounder, stay stuck, and fail to reach our goals and our dreams. Our next life, our next stage, our next station. Yes. Yes. So you ever seen a fish that's out of water and how it's just flapping around? That's what we end up doing. Yes. That's what we'll end up. That's a good picture of what it looks like. We just moving, but we ain't going nowhere. A lot of motion, but no direction. We just stuck. We just grasping for straws. And what often happens is the pastor and or the church will go back to what was popping in their heyday. What was moving us when we were bustling and booming. That's what we're gonna go back to, because our mind says it worked before and it'll work again. I've worked with churches, and every time the pastor got up to sing, he would sing a song from the early 90s. It was like he was stuck in a time warp. And when I looked at the history of the church, that's when the church took off. That's when it was running over at the seams, and his mind was stuck there. And it was 2020, and he was still trying to go back to stuff that worked in 1992, because that's when they were popping. And that's a good sign that you need to sit down somewhere, bring a consultant in, get some help, kill some stuff, end some stuff, or maybe even retire and get out of position, so that fresh vision and ideas can set in and take the organization, take the ministry to its next space and its next level. And so our next in life depends on two ingredients. Number one, how well we maximize where we are right now, and how ready, number two, we are to do what's necessary to get to the next phase. I can come in here every month and teach sessions, but if y'all not going to be honest about where you are on the life cycle, y'all remember early on I gave you the S curve, the sigmoid curve, the life cycle of a church. If you're not going to be honest about where you are as a church on that curve, and if you're not going to be willing to do what's needful and necessary to make the change, you might as well pronounce the benediction on this church. Prepare its death date, do it with grace, sell off the assets, take that cash and seed it into some young growing ministry that's got a promise, that's got potential, and that's got a future. Because if you think you're going to do stuff the same way, there ain't going to be no People's Church of the Harvest in 5 years from now. This will be an abandoned building that I'm going to come in by and put some condos on. I'm just telling you what it's going to be. It's going to be some nice luxury apartments right over here on the west side that used to be people's. I'll put y'all plaque. I'll put your name on something in the building. Change is needful and necessary, because we all want this church to continue to stay relevant in this community, to continue to impact the lives of people for generations to come. But it won't happen if we're not maximizing where we are right now and ready to do what's necessary to get to the next phase. And that requires some necessary endings. So the question is then raised by most people that I'm sure is running through your minds. Well, Stephen, why do we avoid endings? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Endings are necessary, but most of us actually don't do endings well. Here's why. We end up hanging on too long when things should end now. We hang on too long when things should end now. The marriage some of y'all stayed in that you're divorced from now, you know you stayed in there too long. Say amen or ouch, wherever I'm fitting up in your situation. You stay in stuff way longer than you know you need to. We avoid the endings. We saw the red flags early on, and instead of running from the red flags, we ran to the red flags because we like clowns and carnivals. And we wanted to engage in the clown show. Just be honest. You like mess and you like drama. As much as you say you don't, that's why you did it. That's why you engaged, and that's why you stayed so long. And once you got done riding that ride and they got you sick, then you finally decided to get off. But you didn't have to get on the ride in the first place because you saw the foolishness up front. We hang on too long when we should end things now. The second thing about avoiding endings is that we rationalize things and people, and we assume that the situation is fixable. We rationalize things and people, and we assume that the situation is fixable. Any of y'all got kids, grandkids? You ever been to that place, Build-A-Bear? That's how we look at life. We just want to keep building stuff. I can fix this. I can make it. Some of y'all been with men that you shouldn't have been with. I'm going to make them over. I'm going to fix them. I'm going to change them. You ain't. Stop it. You can't change people unless they're wearing a diaper. The only way you can change a grown person is if they're wearing a diaper. They have to have that determination made up within themselves. We are still so in love with the potential of things. And at a certain point, we got to let that go. It's been 30 years of potential. When is the promise going to show itself? We hang on to stuff too long when we should end things now. We rationalize things and people, and we presume that the situation is fixable. Number 3, we're afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of the unknown because the devil that we know is better than the devil that we ain't met yet. We're afraid of the unknown. We prefer familiar bondage to foreign freedom. I know this ain't working. I know this ministry isn't drawing people in. I know it's not impacting people's lives, but it's the only way I know how to do it. So we're going to keep doing it. And when the new people come in and offer up suggestions, well, we ain't never done it that way before. So pastor can keep bringing Reverend Stephen over here, but we ain't never done it that way before. So we is not going to do it like that at the People's Church of the Harvest. He can do that in New Covenant on the south side, but I don't work over here out west. I see what's going through y'all's mind when I be preaching. I'm a prophet. I can see some things. Number 4, we're afraid of hurting someone. We talked about killing stuff and letting some stuff die. We're afraid to engage in endings because we're afraid of hurting someone. Many of us have a whole lot of work to do in the area of emotional intelligence. We have positioned ourselves where we keep lying to ourselves and other people, thinking that we're helping them, when in reality, we're hurting them and we're hurting us. Listen, we got ushers on our doors at our churches that are meaner than junkyard dogs. And somebody needs to tell them, that ain't your space. That's not your place. I know you've been serving there for 30, 40 years, but your spirit ain't right. You would better serve in the parking lot, directing cars in where people see you momentarily, rather than being a doorkeeper into God's house, because people's spirit is now shifted because they met you before they met Jesus. But because we don't want to hurt people's feelings and we have this warm body syndrome, they volunteered, so we put them in place, and it does not align with their values and their makeup and their structure, their mindset. They're horrible people. They're just horrible people that need to be nurtured and developed and discipled before we deploy them and display them before the people of God. But we're afraid of hurting people, so we avoid endings. Number 5, we lack the skills to execute the ending. And so we're passive aggressive, or we just avoid the hard stuff because we were never raised to deal with stuff. We didn't grow up like that. We just always swept stuff under the rug in our family. Keep sweeping. Stuff starts creeping out on that end. Sweep it back under. Set something on top of the edge of the rug so they don't see the dirt over there. That's been our mindset. And we've carried that over to ministry. And so we don't have the skills to lead, but we always want to be running something. Number 6, we fear confrontation. This is why we avoid endings, because we fear confrontation. There's childhood trauma in that area that's never been addressed because you had a mean mama or a crazy daddy, and they beat you and whooped you and abused you and treated you like you was a runaway slave. Every time you tried to bring something up, confrontation got critical and crucial and went left real fast. And so as a result, you've avoided confrontation. And because therapy is taboo still in the Black community and the Black church, because we think we just need Jesus alone, when some of us need to lay on the couch and get some medicine, we haven't unpacked and dealt with some stuff. And because we haven't cried it out as children, we act it out as adults. We fear confrontation, and thus there are no necessary endings taking place. And then finally, maybe it is that we avoid endings because we've experienced too many painful endings and can't go through another one. I've experienced so much loss, so much change, so much death. So many of my dreams have been dashed. I can't stand to end this because I need something stable in my life. Just conversing with a pastor friend yesterday whose church has given her the pits, the blues, sexual harassment by one of her trustees, constant disrespect, you name it, they're doing it to her. And I said to her, you have to make some tough choices, and you're going to have to come hard down on some people. You're going to have to kill some stuff and kill some people, not literally, but from the positions and the power that they have or that they think they have in that position. And her response to me was, I can't. I hear you. I agree with you. I understand what you're saying, but I'm going through a divorce right now. My mother just had a heart attack the other day. My father just died last week. My cousin just died a couple of months ago. My best friend's mom just died 2 days ago. I got to keep this where it is because at least it's the only stable thing in my life. A difficult place to be in, a difficult posture and position to feel stuck in. She knows she needs to create a necessary ending, but she's not willing to because she's experienced far too many painful endings recently, and she can't pull herself to pull the trigger on another situation in her life. Often, we're not prepared to go where we need to go. Thus, we don't see the need to end something, or we continue to maintain false hope that things will get better. When you don't have a vision, when you don't have a plan, when you don't have a destination, a desired end in mind, you'll find yourself just floating along, and you'll go along to get along. What should bother you doesn't bother you. What should be killed, you keep resuscitating and giving life to. Sometimes we'll even find ourselves, and I'll talk about that in our message today, where we keep running back to our captors, people that hurt us and people that harmed us and situations that stifle us, all because we don't really know where we're going. And when we have the end in mind, when we've got a destination and a goal, we'll see the stuff that's detouring us and we'll get rid of it because our mind has said, I got to get here. And this ain't going to help me to get here. But when you don't know where here is, you'll put up with some stuff. For the right tomorrow to come, some parts of today are going to have to face a necessary ending. For the right People's Church of the Harvest to emerge, some stuff today that we're doing today is going to have to die. When we fail to end things well, we are destined to do a couple of things. Repeat the mistakes that keep us from moving on. That's the key thing that happens. When we fail to end things well, we're destined to repeat the mistakes that keep us from moving on. Here's the good news. You don't have to keep repeating the same patterns in life. You did some dumb stuff before, you don't have to stay dumb. You can be delivered. You don't have to keep choosing the same type of dysfunction and toxic environments. You can do something different. You can learn to end things and end things well, which will end some of the pain and the positions that we find ourselves in that limit our growth and our development. Well, Stephen, how can I do this? You've made it clear that I need to end some stuff. You've shown me and you've highlighted why it is that I haven't been ending some stuff. And I get it. I know I need to move forward. So, Stephen, help me to understand what steps I need to take to end things well. I'm glad you're thinking like that. One of the biggest sources and requirements of success is facing reality. And it's only when we face reality that we will be moved to do things differently. The first step in doing what's necessary is to see that what you're doing has no hope of getting you what you want. Eliminate the false hope, eliminate the dreams, eliminate the fake expectations, get off they got potential, it's got potential. Now be real. It ain't worked in 5 years. It ain't gonna work this year. You gave it a try. It failed. No problem. We're gonna pick up and we're gonna move forward. The way that we move through this process and step into this process of ending things is what's known as the pruning process. The pruning process. Pruning is a process of proactive endings. It's a process of proactive endings. That simply means that we actively engage in the process. We take a step, we take initiative, we do the work to create the ending. Pruning is something that we've all experienced. You've been to the hair salon, you were trying to grow your hair, and your stylist trimmed your edges. That stimulated the growth of your hair. They had to cut the dead and the damaged stuff off for the rest of the stuff to grow properly. We've experienced pruning in our lives, and that same thing has to happen for us. I've got a neighbor, and they've got some beautiful landscaping on their home, and they've got this beautiful rose bush that sits right at their front door. One day we were talking, and I asked them, how did you get this rose bush to be so beautiful, so consistent? And she said to me, Stephen, I studied horticulture, and I understand something about roses specifically. And with the rose bush, you have to constantly prune it for it to be as pretty as mine is. And so, Stephen, when you drive by and you see me out here every day, I'm just pruning. I'm just taking care of it. I'm just putting it in posture and position to be as pretty as it is. It's a constant thing. Pruning is cutting away to reduce the extent or the reach of something by taking away unwanted or superfluous parts. I know it's a big word. I'll spell it for you. SUPERFLUOUS. Super, and then FLUOUS. Superfluous parts. We're taking away the unwanted stuff, the unnecessary stuff, the extra stuff. Michelangelo is quoted as saying this: the sculpture is already complete within the marble block before I start my work. I just have to chisel away at the superfluous stuff. The design is already in there. I just got to chip away all this extra that's blocking it. And that's the same stuff we got to do. People's Church of the Harvest is a beautiful ministry, but we just got to chip away some of the extra stuff so that people can see the masterpiece that this place really is. A rose bush can't reach its full potential without a systematic process of pruning. The gardener has to intentionally and purposefully cut off branches and buds that fall into three categories. This is what I see my neighbor doing on a regular basis. I asked about the process to help me to teach y'all today, and she gave me a lesson that's going to help us with what we're doing to improve the church. She said, Stephen, here's what you need to know about pruning. Number one, what you're going to cut off is the things that don't fit anymore. I said, well, how will we know? How can I tell the people what don't fit anymore? Because from the outside, it can all look good. When I see your rose bush, it looks good. I don't understand why you got to come out here every day. I don't see what you're cutting. She said, Stephen, let me help you understand. In the church, if an initiative is siphoning off resources that could go towards something with more promise, cut it off. If an initiative is siphoning off resources that could go towards something with more promise, cut it off. A rose bush, I came to discover, produces more buds than it can sustain. It can only feed so many. The ground that it's buried in, where those roots have taken root, that ground can only feed so many of those buds. So the gardener only saves the best and the most promising. What is it around here that you've been doing for a long time that ain't producing no more, that you could take those resources and put it into something else that has more promise and potential? Number one, you cut off the initiative that is siphoning off resources that could go towards something with more promise. Number two, she said, if an endeavor is sick and not getting well, cut it off. If it's sick and not getting well, cut it off. These nutrients and minerals that are in the ground that come up into that rose bush, they need to go to those stems and those buds that have life. And so it's needful and necessary for her to cut off the stuff that's sick, so it stops siphoning off the nutrients and minerals and necessities that could go to something that's more healthy. Number three, she said, if it's clear that something is already dead, cut it off. We keep putting lipstick on pigs in churches. It's dead, it's not working, but because it's our sacred cow, we keep trying to fix it up and make it pretty, knowing that it's not working. It's dead. Listen, healthy branches need spaces to reach their full height, their full length. But what often happens when you keep dead branches on there, the healthy branches have to grow and then bend and twist to move around, to get to the light, to get to the source, to get to the sunshine. They wouldn't have to do all this contorting and bending and twisting if we would just get rid of the dead stuff. Some of us got promise and potential. We've got gifts and talents and abilities that we can't use because we got dead people in places of power and position, and we got to work around them, which limits our impact and our influence to get things done in an effective way at the People's Church of the Harvest. When pruning doesn't happen, average or worse will happen. If you want your rose bush to be constantly pretty, my neighbor said you got to work with it every day. But when pruning doesn't happen, average or worse will occur. Pruning happens to allow us to reach our full potential. Pruning is necessary. Pruning is natural. And pruning is beneficial to anything that's alive. And because this church still has life in it, pruning is necessary, pruning is natural, and pruning is beneficial. But again, we keep avoiding it because it involves fear and pain and conflict. Yet in order to succeed, in order to experience new life and fresh life, we got to prune some stuff. Let me close out with this purpose of pruning. It's important, People's Church of the Harvest, to know what you're pruning towards. We have to know the standard that we're pruning towards. We have to have a good idea of the definition of what we want the outcome to look like and then prune towards that. If you said, Stephen, do my hair, I got to know what you want it to look like. Otherwise, I'm just going to go to cutting and we're going to see what the end going to be when my wrist gets out of cutting. So you better tell me, give me a picture, give me a paint something, draw a sketch figure and show me something, what you want it to look like. So you don't come out looking crazy on the end. The same thing has to happen with the church. What do we want this place to look like? What's our desired result? What does success look like? Can we define that? And when we do that, we then begin to work backwards and begin cutting off the stuff that doesn't make sense. For those who haven't been around, I announced and it was made clear that I have now taken over pastoring New Covenant Baptist Church. For the past month, we've had listening sessions where we broke the congregation down into different age categories. Each one of those Saturdays was an opportunity for us to gather together, for the members of that church to share with me their dreams, their hopes, their desires, their likes, their dislikes, their perspective, so that we could then develop our strategic plan for how we would move forward. I had to get all of that information so that I could paint a picture of what the end is going to look like, so that we can then work backwards in creating the strategic plan. So when people come to me and say, Pastor, I had an idea. The Lord spoke to me and gave me a vision. If it don't align with everything y'all said y'all wanted in that session, if it doesn't connect with our core values, then that probably wasn't God. It was indigestion. It was what you ate last night. Point is, we ain't gonna do it. And we ain't going to do it because it doesn't align with where we all have said we want to go and what we say we want this church to do and what we say we want this church to look like. It could be great ministry, but it ain't for us. It doesn't align with us. And so we've got to know what the end is going to look like and then build from there. Got to have this good definition of what success looks like, because pruning is strategic, it's directional, and it's forward-looking. Pruning is strategic, it's directional, and it's forward-looking. You need to have a healthy definition of what you're pruning towards. Again, we've got to envision the end result and then prune towards that. Pruning is intentional, and it's intentional towards a vision and desires and objectives that have been clearly defined and are measurable. Vision, desires, and objectives that have been clearly defined and are measurable. One of the most important types of decision making is deciding what you're not going to do and what you're not going to be. Many of us are familiar with creating a to-do list. I want to challenge you at this church to stop with the to-do list for a little bit and create a to-don't list. This is what we ain't going to do no more. This is what we're going to stop right now. We got a long list of what we're going to do, but if we never define what we're not going to do, we'll get caught up in doing all of this stuff, and some of this stuff ain't got nothing to do with what we need to do. So we got to create a what we ain't going to do list. Does that make sense to you? All of your precious resources, your time, your energy, your talent, your passion, your money, it's got to go to the areas of your life and of this ministry that are the best, that are fixable, and that are indispensable. So when you look at your bank statement, when you look at your credit card statement, this is going to help you in your personal finances. Is it the best use of my money? Am I putting my money towards something that's fixable or something that's indispensable? Is it a necessity or is it a want? I'm trying to help you from being broke for the rest of your life, because you weren't designed to be like that. And you shout and snot, watch night service. This is my year of financial breakthrough. But you keep practicing the same practices and haven't changed your mindset about it. Our church, this the new year. We're going to come up with a new catchy theme. This is what our church going to be about this year. And we get down to the end of the year and you ain't been that. Why? Because you haven't put your resources towards what's best, what's fixable, and what's indispensable. You've got to develop criteria by which to distinguish legitimate optimism from false hope to reap the benefits of pruning. Develop some criteria, some benchmarks that help you distinguish between legitimate optimism and false hope. Let me give you some questions to ask when you're battling with, should we end this? Should we keep this? Should we tweak this? What's the performance been so far? Is it good enough? Is there anything in place that would make things different? If not, am I willing to sign up for more of this? That don't just work in the church space, that works in your relationship. You trying to decide if I'm going to get rid of this Negro or Negroette, or I'm going to keep them. Ask these questions. What's the performance been so far? Is it good enough? Is there anything in place that would make things different? Are they seeing a therapist? Are they going to Alcoholics Anonymous? Have they put the weed down? If not, am I willing to sign up for more of this? If they don't change, can I deal with this? If this church don't change, can we be sustainable? If we keep things where they are, will there be a People's Church of the Harvest 5 years from now? You got to develop that criteria to help you distinguish between legitimate optimism and false hope. And here's the final thing that I'll leave with you as we close out and prepare for questions and answers. Wise people know when to quit. Many of us stay stuck in stuff. We don't want to make a hard decision. We don't want to make a call. We don't want to create the necessary ending. Let me remind you, wise people know when to quit. Aubrey de Grey said, don't cling to a mistake just because you spent a lot of time making it. You can make an exit at any point from a situation, a circumstance, a setting that isn't working, that isn't fitting anymore. You got to know when to quit and when to walk away, when to hold them and when to fold them. Wise people know how to fail and fail well. There's nothing wrong with you failing. There's nothing wrong with it not working out. It is a problem if you keep failing in the same space and place time and time again. One time, shame on them. Second time, shame on you. Like, we ought to learn better. We ought to be making different mistakes. That's how you know you're growing and you're developing. When you've got different mistakes and different problems and different issues and not the same old stuff over and over again. Wise people see the failure, they see the mistake, they accept it, they learn from it, and they move on. They don't harp there, they don't park there, they don't get stuck there, they keep pressing. They don't keep beating a dead horse, neither do they try to ride a horse with a broken leg. Neither one of them are going to get you anywhere. I'm challenging the People's Church of the Harvest to not allow stuck to become your new normal. You'll be in between ending something and starting something new. And that middle space is where a lot of people, a lot of churches get stuck. They don't know how to make that full transition from the ending of something old to the beginning of something new. Don't get stuck in that new space, in that middle space. Take the necessary steps based upon the criteria that you built out and the vision of the future that you've designed as to how you'll move from the ending of one thing into the beginning of a new thing. But recognize that the new thing can't begin until the old thing has ended. That's my time, People's Church. Thank you for your time. Any questions, any comments, any concerns? Yes, ma'am. Oh, that just came to me. It may. I guess when you got the word in your heart, it just comes up. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I didn't even recognize that as I was putting this together. I'm glad you read your Bible and you picked up on that. That means there's some good teaching going on over here. Thank you for that. Yes, ma'am. Amen. Yes. Yes. This necessary and ending applies to all facets of life, work, relationships, everything. Thank you for sharing it with them. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Gotcha. Yeah. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Oftentimes it is when we encounter people. Again, I'm tipping my hat to the sermon today, but it's all good. When we encounter people, um, we don't really recognize what's coming up and out of them based upon what they've experienced. And so we should shift our question that we raise of people that may do crazy stuff or off stuff from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. Shift from what's wrong with you to what happened to you that will cause you to respond or react or engage in this particular place. And that puts us in more of a posture of care and concern and compassion when we take that approach. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Yes, great question. There's a book I want to recommend. It's called When the Past is Present. When the Past is Present. Get that book. If somebody could Google that for me. Yeah, When the Past is Present. And in that text, it deals with what we know from a psychological lens as transference. And that book really unpacks that whole process of transference and how we bring the past into the present, how we become plastic surgeons, and we'll have an individual who knows nothing about our issues, our past, and because we didn't deal with the source, we now move it to a place in the space where we're attaching it to somebody else. And so we paint a new face on an old body. And so what she was talking about there, that's a transference issue. When we project something and transfer something and take something out on somebody and they're being crucified for something that they know nothing about. They didn't do it. They didn't have nothing to do with it. And that requires us going to therapy because some of this stuff, it doesn't get unpacked until a therapist asks the right question. And it'll kind of catch you off guard. It's just they're conversing with you and they say something and then something comes up and it just opens the floodgates. And you, oh my God, for 30 years, that's been my problem right there. And I never thought about it. So transference, all of us have transference. All of us deal with transference. And it's healthy when we recognize it. It's like a warning light on the car. And it can show us that there's something that we still need to address here. Because oftentimes we can think that we're over something and we've dealt with something when the reality is that we've just suppressed it. And suppressing it and being delivered from it are two different things. And so going to therapy, getting a counselor that's licensed, that can help us. Some of us need to get our chemicals balanced. So that means we need medication. And we got to be okay with that. Just praying about it don't fix everything. And so we need that help to work through and to process all of that stuff. And then once you kind of identify through the work and the help of a therapist, this is transference. When you see it creeping up, that just signals to you, if you're healthy, oh, I need to address this. I'm not about to dump this on this other person. It has nothing to do with them, but it just means that I haven't healed properly from the person or the situation that harmed me. It's like a haunted house, and the ghost keeps going back to the house where the harm happened. That's what transference really looks like. And until we call Ghostbusters, it'll keep happening over and over and over again. And Ghostbusters shows up in the form of a therapist that can help us to unpack and deal with some of that. Yeah. Did anybody Google for me? What's the name? What's the author's name? Thank you. David Richo. Richo. David Richo. It's an amazing book. You'll glean a whole lot from it. Get it today. It ought to be like the 67th book of the Bible. Once you read it, you'll understand why I say that. You're going to see so much stuff about yourself, even before you get with a therapist. It's going to help your therapy session go a whole lot smoother. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
They dealing with hurt, they dealing with pain, and it's called whatever college would say, you holding on to old tape that's happened.
Yes.
Before a lot of times, people will get divorced, they'll lose loved ones, they'll deal with sickness, and they'll deal with death. And the first thing they do, they look in themselves, and a lot of times they don't deal with that. What did I have to do? What was my part in this? Whatever it is. And what we do is we just keep going on and on and on, but we don't deal with ourselves.
Yes.
See, I could say that I'm an empty nester and I always lived around my family for 65 years with 1 year and 4 months. God took me out of dealing with the kids' children. He dealing with me, so he having me to deal with the hurts from the past.
Yeah.
You know, like people say, oh, they got married again. But those old tapes that they had with that first marriage,
that's right.
Comes right over into the new marriage.
That's right.
And we be walking around thinking we all this, but we really hurt.
Yes.
We need to. We used to have at the church that we would tear. We was on Madison Street. We would tear it on the altar until deliverance came.
Gotcha.
Over here, Pastor, he would deal with us. You cannot put old wine, new wine in an old bottle.
That's it.
And see, and he steady coming with this, and he still holding on. A lot of us is holding on to the hurt. See, you can't go to anything new if you're dealing with the old hurts, the old disappointments, and this and that. So all of it comes into like this. We have to, and that's what's happening because you can come into church and somebody don't say good morning. That could be a trigger.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
We don't deal with ourselves and say, oh, they doing the best that they can do. But a lot of times we in the church, it'll trigger us.
Uh-huh.
How can they don't speak to me?
Sure.
A lot of that stuff goes on.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
yes.
That's a new thing we need to do. Deal with death and grief and divorce and you know
all those traumatic experiences.
Yeah, bad things.
Yes.
Even mothers. The last conference I went to, the things the mother was saying.
Sure thing.
Don't give your money to nobody. Don't trust nobody. That means you don't want to yesterday.
Yep, exactly. Thank you for sharing. Yes, sir.
One thing I found very interesting in this session, and I really mean it. Why do we avoid it?
Yes.
And a lot of people, you see it in a lot of people, you see it in yourself, but I see some of it out of it.
Yeah. Thank you for being honest, man.
You're afraid of hurt, so you're afraid of feeling. So you will set back on that and let it go. And when in reality, you hurt this person.
Yes. Yep.
Give this person crutches to lean.
Exactly.
Instead of taking that away from them.
Yes.
And letting them.
Yep. Develop and grow and yeah.
So I find that out of this whole session very.
Thank you, man. Thank you for sharing.
And I appreciate you bringing to the people's church heart.
Yes, sir. Glad to. Anybody else? Anything else? Thank you. Hmm. Yes. Hmm. Yes. Uh-huh. Hmm. Right. I got you. Yes. Yes. That's emotional intelligence. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm. I got you. Hmm. Gotcha. Yeah. It's the reality of a lot of younger people. Yeah. 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 Sure. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Feel all that negative. Yeah. Yeah. You can. You spitting truth. Yeah. 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 Gotcha. Yeah. 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 Yes. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate you. Yes. All of that. I love it. Yes. Yes. Yep. Yep.
A lot of times we find ourselves just lazy, just taking records and listening to what people are saying and listening to what that one is saying, running around everywhere, listening to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when we really quiet our own self, take a look at ourselves, listen to God, get out your own comfort zone, then you'll start seeing things clearer.
Correct.
So we have to remain teachable. We sometimes, I found out we're just lazy at wanting to know how to end things, lazy at knowing how to deal with people. I'm the first to say I don't know everything, but somebody knows, and I'm going to be a conference. I'm reading we read the Bible, study the Bible, preach the word, and all of that. But I think it's important that we just begin teachable. Some of us are just stuck in our way.
Yes.
So I found myself to say, Lord, keep me open, remain teachable. You always want to grow. You can't make us grow. You put it before, pastor puts it before, he prepares the table before, or we have to grab it. Yeah. As we go now, we're not going to be enough.
That's it. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Sometimes it might be a person that you don't care about, that's trying to teach you something, and then you don't accept it because you don't care for that person.
Mm-hmm.
Or something about that person you don't like.
Yes.
Or you might be that person that they think they are that, but you don't even know that person, so you don't judge them.
Right.
So you can't receive them.
That's it. Yeah. They were the help that you needed, and you shut it down.
Because you have issues within yourself.
Yeah.
It doesn't have nothing to do with that person.
That's it.
The issues we have within ourselves, we need to deal with ourselves.
That's it. Yes. I believe that's my time. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns before we close out? Cool. Thank y'all. I have thoroughly enjoyed being with you. Thank you. Well, I believe Reverend Brown's going to come back and get the offering. All right, sir. Yes, sir.
Appreciate what God has put in you to invest in us. Thank God for Pastor Edie for recognizing that we are in this space. So thank God for you, Reverend Thurston.
Yes, sir.
All right, it's time to give, and I know that we are always participating. So you need an envelope, lift your hand, someone will bring it to you. If not, I'll just, what I'm going to do, we're going to dismiss, and I'm going to just ask you, if you will, just bring your offering around as you come, and God will bless you as you do. Father, we thank you for this teaching. Thank you for allowing us to receive it. Help us go forward strong in the Lord and in the power of your might. We thank you for it. Amen. All right. We are dismissed, so we can just come around and just place your offering here if you don't mind.